Now, as somebody who reviews cars for a living, one of the big questions I always get is, Sofyan, is it worth it to buy a luxury branded car over a mainstream one? Now, to answer that very question, I've got two of the newest 2021 model year sedans in my possession. On my left, the 2021 Toyota Camry in the fully loaded XSE grade, and on my right, the all-new 2021 Acura TLX. Now, in the past, the TLX has always been criticized as being somewhat of a guzzied up version of the Honda Accord. However, this new version of the TLX, Acura says, is riding on a bespoke luxury platform. It's got two new powertrains under the hood. Acura says that it is no longer just a fancy Honda Accord. So the big question I want to answer, if you guys have roughly $10,000 extra to spend on your new family sedan, is it worth it to go with a luxury brand over a mainstream one? That's what we're here to find out. Now, I want to first start off this video by saying that this is not a direct comparison because Toyota or Lexus makes a luxury-oriented version of the Camry, also known as the ES, but obviously, because I don't have an ES in my possession right now, we're comparing it to a fully loaded version of the Camry, which apparently a lot of consumers do because you can now get mainstream family sedans to be relatively well-equipped to luxury car levels, especially with all the modern technology that these cars come with. Now, I want to first talk about design because there are certain things that you notice when you buy a luxury branded car. Now, obviously, let's start with the Camry, which got a slight refresh for 2021. This fully loaded XSE grade is designed to blend the luxury stuff of the XLE with the sportier accents of the SE Camry, or the SE trim level. Now, the Camry's front fascia, for me, has always been a little bit too busy. Toyota tried to refine it a little bit this year, of course, with these new mesh inserts. There's this new silver trim. The XSE also includes fancier versions of the full LED headlights. You'll got LED daytime running lights and turn signals, and LED low and high beams. But as you can see here, no fog lights on the Camry. This one here is the hybrid trim, so it has the blue accented Toyota badge. Now, over here on the TLX, you can see the design, to me, looks a lot more refined. It's not quite as busy as what you see on the Camry. The grille, of course, this is Acura's Diamond Pentagon grille. You have a fancier looking headlight design with the jewel eye, multiple LEDs. It's got LED turn signals and daytime running lights, and Acura also throws in LED fog lights, which you can't even get on a Camry. But the main thing I want you to notice really quickly is just how much wider the TLX is. Actually, in fact, the TLX is about 3 inches wider and about a ½ inch lower versus the Camry, which definitely gives this car a lot more of a premium look to it. The luxury car proportions of the Acura continue when you look at the side profile, whereas this car has a much lower, wider stance, especially when you look at the overall dimensions. Now, Acura obviously moved this to a new bespoke platform, and they made the TLX significantly longer. This is actually 2 inches longer in the wheelbase and overall length versus the Camry at 194 inches long versus 192 inches long. Same thing with the wheelbase. The Camry is 111 inches long, while this is 113 inches long. The real thing you're going to notice immediately is just how much wider and lower the Acura is versus the Toyota. This is 3 inches wider at 75.5 inches wide and about a ½ inch lower, which really makes this car look like a class above the Camry, even though the two cars are pretty similar in the overall length department. Now, the suspension, Acura also went to a double wishbone front suspension versus the struts that the Camry has. The Acura used to have that, but of course, luxury cars tend to have a more expensive suspension setup, which is going to improve handling. The wheels are also 19, surprisingly. You get a 255 width tire on the Acura, which is 20 millimeters wider versus the 235 width on the Camry. In terms of the wheel design, I actually like the wheel design of the Camry more. It's kind of going in theme with today's black appearance packages and such. But let me know in the comments below which car you guys think looks better from the side profile. Now, at the rear, because both of these sedans are the sport-oriented models, they both have pretty subtle rear spoilers, which are also painted black, although the Acura's is slightly larger. I'm also surprised to see that the rear deck lid is slightly higher on the Acura, considering this is technically the lower and wider car. Now, previously, the mainstream offerings tended to only have an incandescent all design for the rear taillights, but as you can see, Toyota has put an all LED design on the Camry, only on the fully loaded XSE and XLE grades. It's actually still a really nice looking design, although I really hate these fake vents, which make the Camry look a little bit more busy. The rear diffuser also is looking like it's trying a little too hard, but I do love the supersonic red color. If I had the gas version Camry, Toyota actually puts a quad outlet setup on the XSE. This is the hybrid, so you only have just one single exhaust here with two outlets. Now, in contrast, the TLX, you can see, has definitely a more interesting look to the rear. The taillight design is also an LED, all LED design, which kind of have a slightly bigger look to them. This one also has super handling all-wheel drive. There's integrated parking sensors, which the Camry does not have integrated parking sensors, it looks like here on the back, which actually surprised me. The exhaust tips on the Acura are a little bit bigger in its design. You have two pipes here. And keep in mind, if you guys go for a Type S version, which will be coming in the spring, it'll have a quad outlet setup. Now, even though the Acura is the bigger car, I'm surprised to say that the Camry technically has the bigger trunk. Acura says this measures 13.5 cubic feet versus the Camry, which offers 16.2 cubic feet. So clearly, the extra space for the Camry is because the structure of the Acura has been stiffened to give you slightly better handling, which is technically what people in the premium segment are looking for. So obviously the exterior has pretty small changes to show you that this is a luxury brand versus a mainstream one, but what about the interior? Because this is where Acura and a lot of other luxury brands really spend the big bucks with trying to show buyers that you want to buy a luxury brand over a mainstream one. Now this one here obviously has a very nice looking red leather. You can actually get red leather on the Camry as well, but this is included with the A-Spec package if you guys want this color combination. When you start the car up, Acura actually put a unique chime, so it's not the same one that you're hearing in your garden variety Honda Accord. And this interior is seriously, I mean seriously, a huge step up over the previous generation TLX. If you guys have seen the interior on the RDX, you're gonna find this familiar. If you're looking for a full overview of this interior, be sure to click on the link in the description below where you can watch my full review of just the TLX by itself. I'm just gonna briefly touch base on this car. Now, first of all, the seats, they're 12-way power adjustable. They're heated and ventilated. You have two-person memory, and the seats also look fantastic. So this is going to remind you that you bought a luxury car. The leather also is a premium Napa leather. It feels really soft and comfortable. The steering wheel also looks very expensive. It's very thick. It's got a flat bottom design. It's missing a heated wheel, which you can get with the advanced package, but you can see it's a tilt and telescoping design to the wheel, which looks great. You've got these metal paddle shifters. In fact, Acura says if you see metal, it's real metal. If you see wood, it's real wood, which is what you typically don't get in the mainstream brands. Now I want to shut the door to compare how that sounds. The door slam noise sounds really high quality. So again, very nice bespoke platform, so it adds to that level of quality with this car. The big infotainment system here is a larger screen versus the Camry. It's 10.25 inches, and you can see it's got Android Auto and CarPlay. It's controlled from this little touchpad here, which works like the one in a Lexus. However, if you guys go back to the Acura system, Acura has a one-to-one positioning. I like the graphics in here. It looks great. The screen also looks really high quality resolution. You have real stitching on the dash, soft touch materials everywhere. This here is a much larger feel, though the center console takes up a lot more space in the Acura, so it makes this car feel like it's a little bit more of a cramped car, even though it's a bigger car, which is interesting. So if you guys are looking for more room, you're gonna want the mainstream car. What really blows this interior out of the water, however, is the 17-speaker ELS sound system, which sounds just as good as all the expensive $5,000–6,000 systems you're gonna hear in a lot of the BMW, Mercedes, and Audi products. So even though the Camry has the JBL system, the one here in the Acura with the metal speaker grills really blows it out of the water. Now let me hop into the Camry really quick and show you guys the updated interior, because Toyota technically made some changes this year. However, it's still just a Camry. So even though this is the fully loaded version of the Camry, the XSE grade, the interior doesn't feel quite as luxury. This is still nice, don't get me wrong, but as soon as I touch the leather on the steering wheel, it just doesn't feel quite as expensive. The wheel itself also looks a little bit more ordinary. It doesn't have the flat bottom design. The paddles behind the wheel also feel a little bit more plasticky. It's very dark in here as well. You can get this car with red leather, but the hybrid is unfortunately only limited to this black interior, especially with the red combination. The interior itself does have soft touch materials, but the stitching, as you can see on the dash, is not real. It's just a faux stitching. Some of the plastic pieces here, while they try to look like metal, you can tell that they're fake. The seats also, the leather itself is a fake leather. It's a leatherette material. They are a 10-way power adjustment for the seats, but Toyota doesn't offer memory seats on a Camry at any price. You have to buy a Lexus to get the memory seats. So that's kind of an annoying thing. My Tester has heated seats, but if you want cooled seats, you have to add a driver assistance package that my Tester is technically missing. The steering wheel itself also tilts and telescopes, so there's a good amount of adjustability for the range. The one thing that Toyota does offer over the Acura is a panoramic sunroof. Now, my Tester doesn't have that panoramic sunroof, but if you guys go for a gas-only version, you can get that. But again, there are certain features about the Acura that the Camry just doesn't offer. Now, let me shut the door really quick, hear how that sounds. It definitely sounds a little bit more tinny versus the door slam on the Acura, which just had a more solid feeling. So that's again going to give you that impression of quality. Now, the one thing about the Camry that I like, however, is the feeling of spaciousness. You do get more interior space in this car. In fact, in terms of the entire EPA volume, the Camry offers about 10 more cubic feet of overall space versus the Acura. That also translates into the back seat, because let me hop into the back seat of the Camry. Toyota says you get around 38 inches of legroom back here, which is pretty good. It is not quite as big as other mid-size offerings in the segment, but the floor here is not completely flat. You get rear seat air vents, no heated rear seats or any power ports like that. You'd have 2 map pockets here. At 5'7", I can get pretty comfortable in the back seat of the Camry. Now let me hop into the Acura really quick and show you guys that, because this is a bigger car, but because of all the structural bracing and such to make this thing sportier, I mean, look at that. The back seat is pretty tiny. Acura says you get around 35 inches of legroom back here, which is actually a little bit less than what you get in a Honda Civic, and about 3 inches less versus the Camry. This is with the driver's seat practically almost all the way back, but at 5'7", I'm noticing it's crowding up on my foot space here. So if you guys are actually looking for the bigger back seat, you're gonna wanna pick the mainstream option considering this is the bigger car. It's a little perplexing. So I know what a lot of you are probably thinking, Sofyan. How can you be comparing a Toyota Camry with the all-new Acura TLX? Now let me first start off the driving portion in the Camry, because of course the Camry got a complete redesign in 2018. It's now a much stiffer, sportier car to drive. The hybrid is not my most ideal car to compare to the TLX, but as you heard, it still will screech its tires when you put your foot down in this thing, and it offers 208 horsepower combined. This actually has a little bit more horsepower than the previous generation TLX with its 2.4 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. Now obviously, I haven't driven the TLX just yet. We're gonna get into that car right after this car. However, the Camry will seriously surprise you. This TNGA-K architecture is significantly stiffer. The steering has a surprising amount of feedback coming through. The chassis stays really flat. The suspension stays really flat in corners. The 19-inch wheels in this car certainly help grip the road a little bit better. I mean, they're still kind of fitted with all-season tires, so this isn't what I would say a sports sedan, but as a mainstream family car, the Camry has gotten really damn good, and that's probably why a lot of people are questioning the need to buy a luxury brand. Now 0 to 60 performance for the hybrid is around 7.8 seconds, which is adequate power. This is obviously going to be significantly slower than the TLX with its turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder. I'd need a V6 Camry to more properly compare the two, or I would love it if Toyota would offer the 2021 Camry with the RAV4 Prime's powertrain. I mean, 302 horsepower and all-wheel drive would be great to see in the Camry. It would make it more powerful than the V6. Just discontinue the V6 and just make that as the upgraded engine. The beauty about the hybrid is it's got a very responsive CVT, which is nice because as soon as my foot goes to the floor, it swaps out the ratios. The gas engine obviously has to come to life to aid with the acceleration, and the passing power of this thing feels good. This is going to be quicker than a regular gas car with a conventional torque converter, geared transmission, because it has to swap down ratios. It still takes time. The handling of the Camry is good. The ride quality is good. Toyota obviously didn't make any changes to the Camry's dynamics for 2021. However, it didn't really need to, because this is still a great car. The Toyota Safety Sense 2.5 now has better pedestrian detection. It follows the traffic better in rush hour traffic. It has active lane keep assist, which is okay working. The one in the Acura, I'm going to assume, works significantly better. But in terms of quietness, in terms of refinement, in terms of ride quality, this is pretty good. This is what I expected a luxury car to drive, like 5, maybe 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. This is really, really excellent, and it makes you question the need to even go for the Lexus version of this car. Obviously, a Lexus ES 350 would be a better comparison against the TLX, but this Camry, you do see a lot of people cross-shopping a mainstream brand with a luxury brand like Acura. So, as a mainstream brand, the Hybrid XSE is good looking. It gets excellent gas mileage. My weeks worth of testing, I've been averaging easily 42 mpg, which is great. You'll go 600 miles on a full tank of gas, which is also really nice. So as a daily driver, this is pretty darn hard to beat, but what if you want something a little bit more? And that's where the Acura comes in. So let me hop into the Acura and let's find out if that thing actually is worth the extra $10,000 that Acura is asking for. So having just hopped out of the Camry, you can't directly compare the two because this is a TLX with the turbo engine versus the hybrid, but let's just go ahead and see how this drives after I just drove the hybrid Camry. So Acura does not say that this car has launch control, but you can kind of brake torque it a little bit with the all-wheel drive system. It definitely is a lot quicker. 0 to 60 in the mid 5-second range, just under 6, compared to 7.5, 7.8 for the Camry hybrid. I'm not going to compare the two in terms of the driving dynamics because the Camry is very much a mainstream family car, although Toyota has done a really good job with that new platform and making it actually handle well. Now, hopping into the Acura, you sense the width of this car. It's about 3 inches wider versus the Camry, which gives you a lower planted feel. The steering in this car actually is about the same quickness, but I think the Camry offers a little bit more feel. This electric power steering is a little numb. I can't get a sense in what the front tires are doing, but I also get a sense that the suspension is a little bit better sorted. This car has the double wishbone front suspension, which is a return to that, and you get a sense that this car definitely handles a little bit better, or a lot better. The engine also makes very pleasant noises compared to the CVT groan that you get. Now, of course, you could compare this to a V6 Camry. That's going to have a different noise, but the transmission in this TLX is just miles ahead of the 8-speed that Toyota would put in the Camry with the V6. It's just a very quick, snappy transmission. The paddles don't work really well, but it really helps with the overall acceleration. I suspect the V6 Camry will still be slower than this TLX with the 4-cylinder, and if you look at drag races of an Accord 2-liter versus a Camry V6, it'll show that because the Accord is still technically the quicker option versus the Camry, even with its V6 engine. Other things I'm noticing about the TLX versus the Camry is the ride quality in this car is noticeably better controlled. The seats are far more comfortable. You get a sense that you're driving a more premium car. The interior materials in here are more upscale. I like the steering wheel with its flat bottom design and the really smooth, high quality leather with the nice contrasting stitching. Even the stitching feels a little bit more pricey and well put together. You get more authentic materials in here with the aluminum trim. The sound system absolutely blows away the Camry's JBL sound system. So for the extra $10,000 that Acura is charging for this car, you get a sense that the entire car feels like it was designed to incorporate, just a better overall experience. And that's the whole reason why you buy a luxury brand. Obviously, $10,000 is a lot of money. And for those of you who don't care about having the luxury car experience, just go ahead and get a Camry with the V6. Don't get the hybrid model if you're looking for the performance. But if you're just looking for a commuter car, the hybrid Camry is obviously going to get better gas mileage. I got 42 in the Camry versus just 23 in this. So 20 more MPG is a huge difference, but remember, that's a commuter car. This is trying to be more like a sport luxury sedan. The V6 Camry will probably get closer to this, maybe even be slightly thirstier versus this Acura. So luxury brands do obviously bring something different to the table besides just the badge, and this comparison is really showing just how far Acura has come with this next generation TLX because they gave it a bespoke platform. No longer does it feel like just a guzzied up Honda Accord. And even though the Toyota Camry has put up a really good fight, personally, I'd rather be driving this right now because it just feels like a far more special car, and you won't be seeing so many of them on the road. So at $46,000 for the Acura and $36,000 for the Camry, there is a $10,000 price difference between these two sedans. Now, I asked a question at the beginning of this video, is it worth it to pay that for the Acura to get the premium brand? Well, that really depends on your priorities. If it were my money, absolutely, because even though the Camry is a really nice car, it has a lot of tech features, it even has some features that's not available on the Acura, and if I had the V6 version of this car, it would better compare with the TLX, but because I only have the hybrid model, obviously I'm going to prefer driving this. Really, the Camry is a really good car that constantly reminds you that it is built to the masses because its interior, while it is decent, doesn't quite have that special feeling. The car looks good on the outside, although from some angles, I personally think that it's trying a little bit too hard. Whereas when you look at the Acura really spent the big bucks on designing this thing to be more of a bespoke car. Besides having its own platform, its unique suspension, the looks of this car really turns heads. I think that the overall refined look of this car will age better versus the Camry. I still haven't warmed up to the messy grille of this car with all of its different angles and such. I think Acura has done a phenomenal job with the interior as well. The inside of this car looks very befitting of a luxury branded car, and it rivals what you're going to find in a lot of the European brands, but at a significant price difference. Because remember, the Acura starts at $37,000, a Camry starts at around $25,000, but you're going to see hundreds of thousands of these out on the road. Toyota sells over 300,000. Now, in contrast, Acura does about 30,000 TLXs every year, so only about 10%. So one of the reasons why you want to buy a luxury brand is because you're going to stand out less. This is a car that's a little bit more unique versus finding a million of these out on the road. And I think that's the whole point of buying a luxury brand. So really, if you guys are looking to buy a new sedan and you have that extra $10,000 to spend, the TLX is definitely one of the best ones out there. And you can compare this to a Lexus, but that's a different review because I don't have the Lexus ES, the refreshed one for 2021. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video comparing a luxury branded car to a more mainstream one. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook. And as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.